Paradrama Tales.
I came home for Christmas. The house was empty, except for Grandma, eating leftovers. A note said, "Spent your $8,500 loan on a family cruise. Take care of her." What drove me to uncover every hidden transaction and force my own family to pay it all back? I pushed open the front door and felt a cold gust of silence greeting me. No laughter, no holiday music, not even the warm scent of cinnamon or pine. Instead, I was met by the faint clinking of Grandma's fork against her plate. I called out, "Hello?" But only the echo of my voice answered. The living room glittered with ornaments and a blinking treetop star that looked as apologetic as I felt. Floor to ceiling, the decorations whispered of the celebration that never came. I set down my coat and moved toward the kitchen, heart pounding. There she was, Grandma, seated alone at the table in her knitted purple sweater, hunched over cold stuffing and half-eaten ham. Her eyes lifted as I approached, and she gave me a sad, toothless smile that made my chest tighten. She didn't speak. Instead, she reached across the table and slid a single torn sheet of notebook paper toward me. I stared at it, unable to swallow the lump in my throat. No envelope, just my name scrawled in my mother's handwriting. "Spent your $8,500 loan on a family cruise. Sorry, take care of her. Love, Mom." My hand trembled as I unfolded the note, the words blurring into a nightmare I couldn't wake from. That money was supposed to pay for my dental surgery, the one I'd saved for over a year by driving nights for Uber, freelancing weekends, even skipping meals so Grandma could afford her prescriptions. I remembered my mother's voice telling me, "It's just a short-term loan. We'll pay you back by February." I nodded then, because I always did, because family comes first. But now, family had vanished, left Grandma here with leftovers and a flimsy apology, off on a luxury cruise. I looked back at her, heart pounding so loud I worried it would crack my ribs. "They didn't think you'd mind," I whispered. She shrugged, folding a napkin with trembling hands. "I guess." That single syllable felt like a verdict. No call, no warning, just a betrayal laid bare on cheap notebook paper. My throat burned with words I didn't let slip. How I'd nodded before when they borrowed for Jacob's tuition, when they covered Dad's gambling debt, when Kelly needed rent after she quit her job. Each time I nodded, I felt smaller, but each time they returned, I expected love, gratitude, a family who cared. Tonight, none of that existed. I sank into the chair across from her, the seat colder than the room. The Christmas lights on the tree flickered like they were trying to apologize, but their glow reminded me only of promises broken. Outside, holiday traffic passed by my parents' street, unaware of the silent drama unfolding behind closed doors. I stared at the note again, willing the ink to fade, but it remained, mocking me with truth. For years, I'd believed kindness was my identity. Tonight, it felt like a prison. And yet, as Grandma's frail voice reached across the table, "We'll fix this," I sensed the first ember of resolve flicker in my chest. This wasn't just about money. It was about respect, dignity, the simple expectation that when you give, you're not just a wallet to be emptied. I folded the note, placed it back on the plate, and met Grandma's eyes. The first step toward reclaiming what was mine had begun. That night, after we'd stared at that cruel little note and the silent tree, Grandma led me down the hallway to her bedroom, as though she were guiding me into a sanctuary. The soft glow of her bedside lamp revealed decades etched into her face, each line a testament to years of love, hardship, and resilience. She sat in the worn armchair by the window, its cushions slumped from years of use, and patted the empty seat beside her. I perched on the edge, raw and trembling inside, while she smoothed the quilt over her knees. "You know," she began in that raspy voice I've heard since childhood, "I've watched the world change 1,000 times from this window." Her fingers traced a faded floral pattern on the quilt, the same quilt I used to clutch when storms frightened me as a child. "Your grandfather and I built this home with our own hands," she continued, "and we filled it with cookies, laughter, and love. They may have borrowed your money, my pension, but they can't borrow our strength." I felt a familiar warmth bloom in my chest. Her quiet courage was more powerful than any proclamation. She reminded me of nights when she'd sat beside me as I fell asleep, whispering that kindness was my true gift, even if others didn't recognize it. Science tells us that Empathetic support from a caregiver can rewire a child's brain to withstand trauma, building resilience in places where doubt tries to take root. Grandma embodied that healing presence, the steady anchor in my storm. She reached into her bedside drawer and pulled out a faded notebook. "Here," she said, handing it to me. "This was your grandfather's ledger. He taught me to keep every receipt, every account, so you always know where you stand." Inside, scrawled pages charted decades of expenses and savings, proof of a life lived with integrity and respect for every dollar earned. "We'll fix this," she whispered, tapping the notebook with her knuckle. "We'll show them that loyalty isn't one way, and that respect must be earned, not demanded." In that moment, I realized that her promise wasn't just a comfort, it was a call to action. Every tremor in her hand gave way to a steel resolve, and I felt the first flicker of courage ignite in my own heart. Grandma rose slowly and opened her closet, pulling out a sturdy canvas bag, the same one she used to take me to picnics on sunny afternoons. "We'll need this," she said, tossing it to me. "Fill it with those old records, bills, and statements. We start fresh in the morning." Her plan was simple but profound. Gather the evidence, confront the betrayal, and demand restitution, not in anger, but in the dignity they so callously dismissed. As she settled into bed, I lay beside her and felt the quilt's familiar weight. "Thank you," I murmured, voice thick. She patted my hand and whispered, "Thank you for always staying kind, my love. Now, we'll prove that kindness has power." Outside the window, the Christmas lights on the neighbor's lawn blinked gently, as though in solidarity. I closed my eyes, knowing the road ahead would be hard, but that I would not walk it alone. Grandma's quiet resolve had become our battle cry, and her unwavering faith in me was the greatest gift I could ever receive. I woke before sunrise, restless with thoughts of Grandma's promise, and reached for my phone, fully expecting silence. Instead, my Instagram feed lit up with a new post from Emily. 4 figures in crisp white bathrobes, champagne flutes raised against a backdrop of turquoise ocean and palm-fringed islands. The photo's caption stung like acid in my blood. Finally, some peace away from all the leeches and negativity. Family cruise, brass blessed. My breath caught at the price tag floating in my mind. $3,000 per person for a 7-day Caribbean voyage. A line item they'd charged to the very loan I'd given for my dental surgery. My heart pounded as I tapped on the image to zoom in. There was my mother's laugh, wide and unrestrained. Jacob's bloated grin, Emily's designer sunglasses reflecting the ship's infinity pool, and my father, red-faced from buffets and cocktails, oblivious to the wreckage they had left behind. I scrolled through their memory carousel. Photos of gourmet dinners under starlit decks, spa treatments billed at hundreds of dollars a session, private butler service in a cabin bathed in fresh flowers. According to industry averages, that kind of luxury cruise could easily top $12,000 for a family of 4, 4 times what I'd scraped together in over a year of Uber rides and freelance gigs. They'd spent every penny I saved with deliberate ease, then toasted to my absence, mocking my desperation as if I were the true parasite. As the sun rose higher, its warm rays splashed across my apartment walls, mocking me with the promise of new beginnings they'd squandered. I stared at the screen until the edges blurred, then set my jaw. This wasn't merely carelessness or mismanagement. It was a calculated betrayal, a public display of contempt for my sacrifice. Emily's smug phrase, leeches and negativity, echoed in my mind. Leeches, like I'd been draining them dry, when in truth I'd been propping up their entire world. For the first time, I didn't feel anger or sadness. I felt a fierce, icy focus. Every time I'd nodded and covered their bills, each car repair, each tuition check, each loan request, I'd believed in family. But they believed only in taking. And now, with a single social media post, they'd handed me the proof I needed. I locked my phone, grabbed Grandma's faded ledger from the table, and stuffed it into a canvas tote she'd prepared. Each page represented a transaction they'd hidden behind smiles and excuses. Today, we would turn those whispers into a record that no amount of champagne toasts could drown out. With determined steps, I headed for the garage, where stacks of statements and receipts waited like loyal soldiers. I was no longer the silent provider. I was the architect of their reckoning. And as the elevator doors closed behind me, I felt the spark of justice light my way at last. By midday, Grandma and I had transformed the garage into our command center, stacks of old bank statements piled on the workbench, printer ink still wet on every page. The concrete floor was littered with envelopes labeled by year, 2016, 2017, on up to this Christmas. I spread out her faded ledger beside a trail of ATM slips and credit card receipts. "Let's start with every dollar you sent them," I said, voice low but steady. First, we matched Grandma's pension deposits against withdrawal records. Dozens of $200 to $500 cash pulls at gas stations and convenience marts, places Dad always claimed were just emergencies. Each slip whispered a lie. Then we cross-referenced Emily's Venmo requests. Timestamps showing daily charges from Sephora and the Apple Store, tagged urgent rent help. We flagged every transaction that didn't line up with household bills, school fees, or medical costs, because none of those were what I remembered them borrowing money for. Next, I pulled up Dad's gambling statements, which revealed a pattern. Weekly online wagers siphoning off thousands while Grandma sat freezing on Christmas Eve. As I highlighted the $1,200 loss at the casino site beside Grandma's trembling finger, I felt the weight of every holiday they'd spent at the slot machines, pretending it wasn't my money lining their pockets. Grandma's eyes flickered with sorrow, but also with that fierce glint I knew well. "We'll fix this," she whispered again, her voice half squeak, half steel. We charted a timeline, a family loan request in April 2016 for minor home repairs, followed by a sudden $3,500 cruise booking in November 2019. Each year, a new loan disguised as help for Cousin Kelly's rent or Jacob's tuition, until the final blow, the $8,500 earmarked for my dental surgery, spent without a call, without a thank you, on a luxury ship's endless buffets. I drew arrows connecting each misuse back to a crumpled note on the refrigerator. The map was brutal in its simplicity, every act of support repaid with betrayal. As the afternoon light waned, I assembled our proof into a digital folder, scanned statements, screenshot receipts, annotated ledger pages. I titled the file, Family Financial Abuse, 2016 to 2020. With a single click, I encrypted the folder and sent copies to our attorney, to the retirement board, and, just to be sure, to the local news desk that had covered Grandma's neighborhood. I hit send and felt an electric jolt. Our evidence was no longer secret. Stepping back, I surveyed the piles of paper that once felt like dead weight, but now shone with purpose. Grandma placed her hand on my shoulder. "Tomorrow," she said, "they won't know what hit them." I nodded, heart pounding with both dread and resolve. We had turned a mountain of bills into unassailable proof that would force my family to face the consequences. And as I flipped off the garage light, the last thought in my mind was that next time they knocked on the door, they would no longer find me sitting quietly. They would find a reckoning waiting. They pulled into the driveway at dusk, stepping out of their luxury SUV like returning conquerors. Mom draped in a cashmere coat, Dad's cheeks still flushed from the ship's sun, Emily with her designer suitcase swinging from her hand, and Jacob striding behind, jaw set. Their laughter spilled down the walkway before they even reached the door, as though they expected applause for their holiday adventure. I met them at the threshold, Grandma's knitted shawl draped over the banister behind me, the faint glow of the kitchen light casting long shadows on the floor. They paused, caught off guard by my calm stance. No tears, no anger, just a folded laptop screen glowing with purpose beside a neat stack of papers on the table. "Welcome home," I said softly, voice steady. "Why don't you all sit down?" They exchanged puzzled glances but complied, Dad sinking into the armchair, Mom drifting toward the dining room table, Emily plopping onto a couch cushion, Jacob collapsing into the recliner. The room smelled faintly of cold ham and stale stuffing, the tree lights blinking like they were trying to apologize. I closed the door behind them, clicked on the laptop, and pulled up our Family Financial Abuse folder. On the screen blinked a spreadsheet titled 2016 to 2020 Verified Transactions. Every line color-coded, red for Grandma's pension withdrawals, blue for my loan disbursements, green for credit card charges. I watched their faces tighten as I scrolled through ATM slips matching Grandma's card, Venmo requests from Emily tagged urgent rent, and gambling site losses that echoed the cash pools in Dad's name. Mom's glossy lips parted. Dad's knuckles whitened around the armrest. "Where did you get this?" Mom's voice trembled, betraying more fear than anger. I met her gaze. "From the account statements you accessed without permission," I said. I clicked to the next file, screenshots of cruise deposits, 4 equal payments of $3,000 each, billed to the very loan you promised to repay by February. Emily let out a strangled laugh as her veneer cracked. "I thought you'd forget," she muttered. "I knew you'd catch up eventually," I replied, sliding the laptop across the table so the gulf between us felt physical. Jacob sprang up, face red. "This is a setup," he snarled, but his trembling hand betrayed him. Grandma leaned on her walker at my side, eyes fierce. "You left me here with moldy leftovers," she said, voice quivering with indignation. "Now you face the consequences." The room crackled with silence as they realized this wasn't a threat, but a promise. I swallowed past the lump in my throat and closed the laptop with a decisive click. "You have 48 hours to return every cent, or this goes to the authorities," I said, voice low but unyielding. Their stunned silence echoed louder than any argument they could muster. And in that quiet, I felt the last shackle break free. Their facade of familial entitlement lay in ruins before us, and at last I had reclaimed my voice and my dignity, one irrefutable piece of evidence at a time. With the evidence compiled and securely backed up, I drafted the email that would become our ultimate leverage, addressed to the state's Department of Aging and Adult Services, the Social Security Fraud Division, Grandma's Bank Compliance Office, and, just to ensure public accountability, the local news desk. In the subject line, I typed, "Formal complaint, elder financial abuse, and unauthorized account access." I summarized every wrongful withdrawal, every misappropriated loan, and attached the spreadsheet titled 2016 to 2020 Verified Transactions, the Venmo logs, ATM slips, and our annotated ledger pages. Then I hit send and watched as the read receipts rolled in, one from the department legal mailbox, another from the ombudsman's office, and a third from my attorney, Natalie, who replied within minutes, "Excellent work. Case opened under reference. EF 54822. They have 48 hours to make full restitution before we escalate." My heart hammered at the weight of what I'd just unleashed, but Grandma squeezed my hand and whispered, "They'll come crawling." Sure enough, within an hour, Mom's phone rang off the hook with texts. "We're so sorry. I'll drop it by this afternoon, and please don't do anything drastic." I ignored the pleas and forwarded each message to Natalie. A single knock at the door that evening announced Mom's arrival. She looked like a storm cloud. No makeup, hair pinned back, eyes red. She thrust a thick envelope across my kitchen counter. "Here," she muttered. I slid it open. A cashier's check for $8,500. Exactly what I'd lent them. No interest, no apology attached. "One down," I said quietly, forwarding a photo of the check to Natalie with the note, "Received first installment." Behind her, Emily hovered in the doorway, her designer coat suddenly too heavy on her shoulders. Next morning, my phone buzzed with an email from Natalie confirming the state had begun an investigation into Social Security misappropriation. Jacob panicked next. His text read, "You can't do this. You're ruining us." I forwarded it too, then blocked his attempt to call. Hours later, an official letter arrived for Dad. A notice of intent to garnish his wages for $2,700 plus interest. He stormed in, face beat red, shaking the letter like a flag of shame. "This is extortion," he barked, but Grandma's calm voice stopped him. "You extorted her savings. Now, you own her." 2 days later, Emily, trembling, slid $3,100 into my mailbox in 4 installments, each verified and recorded. And by the time the 48-hour deadline passed, we had recovered a total of $14,322.85, enough to cover my surgery, buy Grandma a proper lift chair, and establish her own protected trust account. Their panicked retreat was testament to the power of truth, backed by law. One chance to do the right thing, or face the full consequences. As I watched the last of their funds return, I felt a quiet triumph. This was more than money. It was restoration of dignity, an unbreakable boundary set in ink and steel, proving that When you arm yourself with facts and legal resolve, even the closest betrayals can be righted. By dawn, the day after the deadline, the checks had all arrived, and the slow exhale I'd been holding finally escaped. I sat at the kitchen table with Grandma, the swollen envelope of restitution still in my lap, and began to allocate each dollar with purpose. First, I booked my long-postponed dental surgery, $3,000 for a new crown that would restore not just my smile, but my confidence. The next $2,000 went to Grandma, a power-lift recliner to ease her aching hips, and a home health aide for twice-weekly visits, so she'd never wait alone through another sleepless night. Science tells us that secure, supportive environments reduce stress hormones in seniors, improving sleep, mood, and overall health. And I saw it instantly in Grandma's eyes. When the delivery men wheeled the recliner into her living room, her face crumpled, tears brimming. "You gave me comfort again," she whispered, her voice thick with gratitude. It was more than furniture. It was proof that someone still cared enough to make her world safe. With the remaining $9,322.85, I set up a locked, interest-bearing trust account under Grandma's name. Only hers and mine could withdraw funds, guarding her pension from any future exploitation. Watching her review the paperwork, her hand trembled as she signed each page. "Security," she said, "is the greatest gift." In that moment, I realized rebuilding trust wasn't just about replacing what was stolen. It was about restoring her sense of control and dignity. Over the next week, our home transformed. No more silent dinners under fluorescent kitchen lights. Instead, we shared warm meals at the restored dining table, laughter echoing where tension once reigned. I accompanied Grandma to her first nurse visit, hand in hers, as she marveled at the help unloading groceries and folding laundry, tasks she'd once done alone to avoid being a burden. Each evening, I found her in her new chair, hands folded over her lap, warm and content instead of hollow and anxious. Meanwhile, I scheduled follow-up appointments to ensure my oral health would support my next steps, applying for a dream job that required a presentable smile and steady confidence. As I practiced speaking lines for interviews, I felt the subtle shift. No longer curtained by shame, I could face the world head-on. The financial stability we'd engineered together gave me the freedom to plan, to invest in my future rather than patching crises. By the second Sunday, Grandma and I ventured out to her favorite Greasy Spoon diner, checkered floors, neon signs, overpriced coffee, and shared grilled cheese and fries. She dipped hers into a frosty milkshake and laughed, a deep, genuine sound I'd missed for years. "I miss this," she said, eyes sparkling. "Me too," I replied, feeling the full circle of healing, from betrayal to rebuilding, from fear to joy. As the sun set over that comforting hum of clinking plates and soft chatter, I knew we'd done more than reclaim stolen money. We'd rebuilt a sanctuary of trust, laughter, and mutual care. $1, one boundary, one shared meal at a time. The publicity hit them like a tidal wave. Within hours of the complaint going public, our small story of stolen pension and Christmas betrayal exploded across social media and local news channels. "Family steals, grandmother's savings, granddaughter fights back" blazed the headlines, accompanied by screenshots of Emily's "leeches and negativity" caption and snippets of Jacob's panicked texts. Mom's Cozy Kitchen cooking channel was the first casualty. Her inaugural video vanished overnight when viewers flooded comments with accusations of pension theft and demanded accountability. Emily's influencer deals evaporated as sponsors dropped her faster than she could post an apology, and her Instagram MLife Reset feed fell silent under the weight of branded hashtags like #family_scandal. Jacob, once brash and untouchable with his social media rants about toxic siblings, found prospective employers balking at background checks that flagged wage garnishment orders. Within days, his LinkedIn profile was stripped of endorsements and his desk was cleared. Dad, too, felt the sting. Colleagues whispered in the hallways at his firm, clients quietly canceled contracts, and an email finally arrived from his human resources department asking for an explanation. The local business journal ran an expose on elder financial abuse, quoting our spreadsheet and Grandma's tearful statement. And the article was shared more than 50,000 times on Facebook, drawing comments from strangers who'd quietly suspected their own families. Even distant relatives who once ignored Grandma's Christmas cards began to text apologies, though some slipped into our spam folder where I read them privately, jarred by the realization that public shame had become the only thing powerful enough to elicit their concern. Meanwhile, Grandma and I watched this reckoning unfold from our kitchen table, steam rising from mugs of tea, a sense of vindication warming us more than any apology ever could. We realized that while money could be repaid, reputation once shattered might never fully recover. But perhaps that was the point, to show my parents that betrayal has consequences far beyond an $8,500 refund. As we reviewed the final payment confirmations, the last installment from Emily, her trembling receipt as she typed "I'm sorry, Grandma" into her Venmo note, and Jacob's reluctant bank transfer, I saw in Grandma's eyes a mixture of sorrow and relief. She patted my hand and whispered, "Justice tastes sweeter than any Christmas feast." And in that moment, I understood that our public reckoning was not just a cautionary tale, but a beacon of hope, proof that when lies are laid bare and goodwill weaponized, the only antidote is truth spoken loud enough to be heard, by family, by community, and by every stranger who saw in our story a reminder to protect the ones who gave us everything. As Grandma and I sat in her sunlit living room, the house now humming with warmth instead of betrayal, I realized our victory went far beyond a returned bank balance. We had reclaimed her dignity and my self-respect in a world too quick to dismiss both. Watching her settle into that power lift recliner, a smile blooming across her face as she wrapped herself in a quilt I'd helped wash, I felt something shift deep in my chest. The quiet nights of anxiety and whispered apologies were replaced with laughter echoing through these walls again. Rebuilding trust wasn't simply replacing the stolen dollars. It was restoring the bond between generations, proving that love can survive anger when it's backed by action. Science shows that taking a stand against injustice is one of the most healing things we can do for our body, our mind, and our relationships. Grandma's health improved almost immediately. Her sleep deepened, her spirits lifted, and her confidence in me grew stronger than ever. Our story resonated far beyond these walls. Strangers reached out with words of support, sharing their own tales of family betrayal and urging others to protect their elders. I realized that by speaking my truth, I had given voice to countless others who felt silenced, and that solidarity can spark real change. If you've ever felt taken for granted or witnessed someone you love become a target of financial abuse, know this: you're not alone, and you have the power to right those wrongs. Share this video to remind your friends and family that protecting our elders is a duty we all share. Subscribe for more stories of resilience and transformation. Real people using facts, courage, and compassion to stand up for what's right. In the comments, tell us, have you ever had to confront a tough family betrayal? How did you find the strength to set boundaries and reclaim your dignity? Your experiences could be the guiding light someone needs today. Because in the end, our greatest gift isn't what we inherit, it's the integrity we pass on. Let's keep building a community where kindness isn't a weakness, but a force too powerful to ignore.